Hello, good morning. This is Rick Pena, and I'm bringing you today's word for May 28th, 2015. Yesterday, I shared a message with you from Mark chapter 5, verses 25 to 37. For the last few days, we've been looking at this passage, really in Mark 5, from this man named Jairus and how his little daughter was at the point of death, but he spoke the language of faith. He said to Jesus, if you would come to my house and lay your hands on my daughter, she shall recover and she shall live. And so this message is part of a series entitled Grace-Based Success, where we are learning how to win in life, how to do it God's way by his unearned and amazing grace. Well, here's a key. The title of today's message is Become Someone God Can Trust. We all know that we can trust God, but when you become someone that God can trust, that God can rely on, that you have proven yourself to be trustworthy before the Lord, then he will be able to use you for his glory down here in the earth, and you will experience heaven on earth. So yesterday we saw how Jesus raised that little girl from the dead. She had died. He raised her from the dead. But I pointed out something in yesterday's message that I want to go back to again today. Jesus, yes, had living faith for a dead situation. But before he raised the little girl back to life, what he did was he knew that the situation was going to be dire when he got to the house. So when he received word that the little girl was dead, and he was en route there, right? So it was Jesus going, Jairus was with him, the disciples were with him, and then the crowd was following. He stopped the crowd. He said, listen, you guys can't go any further. And then out of the 12, I told you, he didn't take the crowd. He didn't take the 70. He didn't even take the 12. He tells to the 12, he says, listen, I don't want you guys to go either. There's only 3 that are going to go with me. Peter, James, and John. So he only took his inner circle with him. Why? Because he knew that it was going to be a strong situation. It was going to be a difficult situation when he got to the house. The mourners were going to be there. They were going to be crying and wailing and all of that mess. And so when he got to the house, he was like, listen, if you guys can't believe God, you need to leave too. He kicked everyone out of the house. And so it was only when Peter was there, Peter, James, and John, Jesus, and Jairus, that's it. Everyone else is gone, that Jesus then performed the miracle. Jesus did just as Jairus asked and declared, and he laid hands on him, laid hands on the little girl. She recovered and she was able to live. She got up, she walked around, and the miracle was performed. My point is, though, that Jesus only brought a certain set of people with him. And at that point in yesterday's message, I brought out the fact that when the pressure's on, you need to surround yourself with people of like precious faith. Now, for today's message, I'm not really going to focus on that. What I'm going to focus in on is the fact that Jesus selected Peter, James, and John. But really, what I've been teaching on right now is Peter. So I'm going to focus on Peter. Why did Jesus select Peter? Out of everyone, Jesus wanted Peter in the room, and that's something that we can learn from, right? So Jesus selected Peter because Peter had proven himself to be trustworthy. The message, once again, is that you and I must become someone, a person that God can trust. What does this mean to you today? I have 6 things I want to share with you on this Thursday morning. Let's get into them. All right, number 1, make yourself available to God. Peter was far from perfect, and we know that. If you know anything about Peter, he was far from perfect, but he was always willing. And because of it, he quickly became part of Jesus's inner circle. My question for you is, are you willing? I mean, does God know that you're available, right? It's not about your ability with God, it's about your availability. He has all the ability by his grace. He just wants to know if you are willing, if you are available, if you are willing to give up your time, your talent, your treasure, your resources, give yourself over to God to be used of him for his glory. Peter was always willing. He was always available. He was always ready. He wasn't always right, but he was always ready. And if you're always ready, then God will use you too. Number 2, overcome the fear of failure. Now, Peter, I said he wasn't always right. He was always ready. Peter made major mistakes. He failed on multiple occasions, but he also had huge successes. Why? Because he was not afraid of trying, right? You got to overcome this fear of failure, which leads me to number 3. You want to be successful as a believer? Take chances. You cannot be afraid of taking chances. Peter was the only disciple to even attempt to get out of the boat when Jesus was walking on water. As a result, Peter was the only disciple to ever walk on water. Matter of fact, the only documented other human other than Jesus to walk on water. My point is that you're never going to walk on water if you don't get out of the boat, right? You will never hit a home run if you don't take the swing. You will never miss a shot you don't take, but you will never make it either, right? So you have to be willing to take chances. Peter was not perfect, but Jesus wanted him around because when the chips were down, when the pressure was on, Peter was not afraid. He was always willing to do whatever needed to be done. He was always willing to at least take a chance. Listen, to live by faith, to learn how to live by faith, you are going to have to fail sometimes. I mean, you're going to miss it sometimes. That's okay. I mean, there's plenty of times where I've declared something publicly from the Pope in front of everybody. God said this, or I'm believing God for this, or this is going to happen. And then it didn't happen. And it wasn't God's fault. It was my fault. I missed it. So what? Listen, I've hit it a bunch of times too, right? So you're never going to be able to win or succeed big time with God if you're not willing to take chances. You have to take chances. You're not always going to be perfect, but you have to at least try, right? Number 4, be yourself. Here's a big deal. This is a big deal for God. He wants you to be yourself because that's who he made you to be. So Peter boldly declared he would never deny Jesus. He said that, oh Lord, I will never deny you. And he wound up denying him 3 times. Peter courageously defended Jesus when Jesus was coming to get arrested. When Judas came with those people to arrest Jesus, man, Peter pulls out his sword and says, no, you're not taking my master, and cut a guy's ear off. And Jesus put the ear back, rebuked Peter like, dude, what's wrong with you, man? But I'm sure that Jesus got a chuckle out of that. You know why? Because Peter was just being Peter. Peter was being himself. And you have to be yourself. Peter was used mightily, right? But it was only because he was always willing to be himself. God is only going to bless you when you're you, because that's the you that God birthed you to be. Number 5, prove yourself trustworthy to God. Peter may have made many mistakes, but Jesus trusted him. When the pressure was on, when a little girl's life was on the line, when death had already taken hold of her soul, Jesus wanted Peter in the room. That's important. Jesus wanted Peter in the room. My question is, would he want you? If you were walking with Jesus and you were going to raise this little girl from the dead, and there was a bunch of people there to pick, and Jesus could only pick 3, would you be picked? Would Jesus want you in the room? You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be trustworthy. Number 6, and finally, you have a part. Now listen, I've been teaching on grace for 2.5 years now. So grace is God's part. He has already given you everything you need to become the person that God birthed you to be, right? It's already there by grace. He gives it to you unearned, unmerited, undeserved. I got it. I've taught you all of that already. But listen, grace is God's part. You have a part too. You must develop your faith. You must prove yourself trustworthy. You must be loyal to God. You have to develop godly character. And remember, I'm not saying that you do this on your own strength or power. God has already given you the grace to do everything I'm saying. But the point is that you must be willing to do it. God has given you the grace, but you must be willing to do it. God is not going to force you to be blessed. You must be willing to do it. If you are willing, then by God's grace, you will be able. And as much as you can count on God, here's the key. God will be able to count on you. And when you become that person that God can trust, that God can count on you, then listen, God will use you to change the world. So let's speak something over our lives. Declare this in faith, repeat after me, and speak it from a believing heart. Say, Father, I thank you for teaching me about your grace and also my requirement to live by faith. It is by faith that I declare myself trustworthy. I am loyal to you. I acknowledge no other God or deity. You alone are God, and you alone are Lord in my life. I am dedicated to you. I live every second of every day seeking to please you, Father. I live my life in honor of Jesus' death. I am available to you. I may not be perfect, but I am available. When you speak to me, you know I'm always ready to be used. I put your plans above my own, and I am always willing to shift my schedule to accommodate your plans and purposes. I am not afraid of failure. I have failed enough already to not be afraid of it. My heart is open to believe. My legs are ready to achieve all you lead me to do. I see the invisible. I attempt the impossible, even at the risk of looking foolish. And because I do, I am able to accomplish what others can't because they won't even try. I know I trust you, but by faith I declare that you can trust me. Not because I'm so good, but because your grace has made me trustworthy. I declare this by faith. In Jesus' name, amen. This is today's word. Apply it and prosper. If you're not getting these messages, go to todaysword.org, sign up, you get the messages, and there will be a blessing to you. As you head into this day, let me say this one more time. Become someone God can trust. And if you do, your life will never be the same. God bless you.